Hello there, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back again.
Okay, this is a big one, guys. This is a big one. There's a lot of stuff in here that's gonna be, for some people, some of it's gonna be redundant. Other parts gonna be totally for the first time you've ever heard anything like this, and it's gonna take maybe time to assimilate. So we do want to encourage everybody to check out evolutionaryenergyarts.com and learn more about us and everything that we do. And please do subscribe to both channels, Evolutionary Energy Arts and also over on EEARTS as well. Each one does have unique videos that are up. We want to thank you guys for your support on Patreon and Ko-Fi. On Ko-Fi, you could do a one-time donation where you just simply change the number of coffees. As I am sipping on coffee right now, I have a tendency to do that. I do like my coffee. And also you could do monthly donations just like you can do over on Patreon. And so the Book of Revelation, we had talked about this briefly, and this is not going to be all just about the Book of Revelation. The Book of Revelation is basically, in so many ways, it is such a perfect symbolism for the entire system. Because, yes, there is a lot hidden in there, a lot of good, a lot of bad, a lot of truth, a lot of distortion, a lot of control, a lot of potential for freedom. And yet, every single step in their script is kind of in here, too. There's so much in the Book of Revelation. And it is said that the Book of Revelation was written by John the Beloved. Not John the Baptist, but it was said it was written by John the Apostle. But what we have gotten is absolutely not. It was not written by John the Apostle. Not at all. Now, the oldest copies of the Book of Revelation that we have date from about 300 AD-ish. And again, we do have fragments is mostly what we do have, but we do have some full copies again that are going to be about 250, 350 years after Yeshua, Jesus, was walking on the planet. So that is quite a bit of time. And the key is to me, the key was looking at, really when these copies came, they came after Nicaea, really. And again, we know history is his story, or her story, or their story, the controller's story. The ones that are in control write the history. They give us all the things that, are out there for us to consume. For the most part, some of it they have to grudgingly give us. Because in order to enable free will to occur, where we actually say, hey, we're giving you the keys to the kingdom to control us, which is actually what's happened, they have to give us the opportunity to discover both the truth and obviously the stories that they've given us.
Mm-hmm. And I just love when Mike is here to go through all of these different readings and understandings, because he is so extremely well read. It just gives me chills. The part that I think that I can bring to it is an energetic standpoint. I can look at the Book of Revelation and I can speak to the fact that it does pull you in. It has like a God spell to it. People love to soak and sink into the Book of Revelation because they want understanding. They want to know the truth. And it's like a magnetic force. So it is, I think, very important to open up these books and take a look and see what's inside of them. Let's fillet it open a little bit. Let's find what parts are truths and what's not.
Absolutely. This is just fascinating. And again, if we just take everything at face value, we're missing the picture. And so, this morning, actually, and last night, Cindy was getting messages from Yeshua. Yeshua is one of our main guides. The actual Yeshua. Now, how well can we know Yeshua just from biblical sources? It's not going to give you the real picture. Because again, this is given to us from the controllers. It's all from the controller's perspective. as we know, we had pretty much the vast majority of the Gnostic texts that we have available to us now were not available to us for about 1900 years. For about 1900 years, the Gnostic texts were taken out of the equation. Many other as well were taken out of the equation. The Council of Nicaea, again, which was something that was called into being by the Roman emperor, who was born a pagan. Sol Invictus was the original deity that he served, quote unquote, the conquering sun, right? And then he had a vision of a great light in the sky and was, supposedly told to conquer in the sign of the cross. Now, when we look at the sign of the cross, most people will immediately equate it with Jesus, whose, Hebrew name was Yeshua. Basically translates to Joshua, and so, again, a common name for that time period. Most of the language that was spoken by Yeshua and Mary and his mother Mary, both Marys, and all those in his inner circle was more Aramaic than Hebrew. Aramaic was the language of the land, so to speak, in his area, though he was versed in Hebrew, and actually he did do a lot of traveling. Many people have said, where were those lost years of Yeshua? Where was he all that time? Well, during that time and after that time, he traveled all over, and he had some help traveling. He was a master of so many things par excellence. His abilities truly were what we would call miraculous. He had the abilities of really that are only seen in perhaps the greatest yogis that we see upon the planet.
But still, at the same time, there are abilities that we all can obtain. We can all do these things. And from when I have spoken to Yeshua, what I get is that he wanted to create that vision for mankind to understand and find their way back to the golden age, for them to see and realize, have that realization of who they are, how important they are, how important their journey is, their own journey for themselves. And he gave us that vision. Many times when we work on people, one thing I tell them to do is think of yourself at the healthiest point of your life, because the information that's swirling around your body is going to look for instructions. It'll find that instruction in your mind's eye. So we at least need to create that visual. Yeshua is that visual for us, but they've distorted it with one story after the next, after the next, after the next, to hide that information that we need to become our best selves.
So the Council in Nicaea happened in 325 AD, and this is after the conversion of the Roman emperor, whose power he felt was in danger. In fact, his power he felt was in danger so much that he had his first wife and his first son executed because he feared them usurping the throne. And then he commenced this council, and it was only one of what would be many councils. And again, his bishops, you got to realize, Christianity was growing, but it was very, very different depending on who you were talking to. Mm-hmm. And there were many different thoughts out there. It wasn't a unified theory that Jesus was God, or that Jesus was necessarily a God-man. Many simply viewed him as a great teacher. And in fact, modern Judaism and Islam would say that he was a wonderful teacher, but not necessarily God incarnate. So, as always, we are given lies and distortion of the truth, but there's a little grain of the truth because, yeah, he was the Son of God. So are all of us, sons and daughters of God, of Source. God, Source, is within all of us. So the source of all is within all of us. and the creator of this universe, by coming into this universe, even if you have been in other universes, you take on the essence of the creator of this universe. So the creator of this universe is in you as well. So, that explains how these things can be said. And again, if he was the only one that could do all these miracles, why did he say we would do greater things? They had to put that in there because they got to, of course, allow us the ability to discover the truth for ourselves. And if we just simply take things on faith, you're trusting the mainstream media again. It's not wise to trust the mainstream media. We understand that in this world. You have bits and fragments of New Testament books that start to be, the ones that we have found are from, again, about 200 AD. You get bits and fragments. Old is complete, come from around the time or thereafter the Council of Nicaea happened. Sometime between 300 and 400 AD is what they are estimating. So when we look at the book of Revelation, who really gave it to us? When we look at the Council of Nicaea and the other councils that came after, who really commenced these councils? The sign of the cross is very interesting, is it not? We find the cross all throughout history, and there's different types of crosses. Now the crucifixion cross, let me bring that up.
Mm-hmm. All of these things have huge purpose. Why do they make the cross such a huge visual example? And once we start to realize what's going on behind these things, then we're allowed to go search for our own truth. But right now they've put what they want us to believe in front of us. It's really important to them that they're in control of our belief system.
So, again, there's many different crosses, and crosses have been something that have been used throughout history, and they predate Christianity in itself. And the problem is, again, you could just see how people are looking through the controller system. It's almost impossible for us, as you see an Ankh here, which is Egyptian and vastly predates. But you could also view the Ankh as a symbol. It's a symbol of life, but it's also the symbol of a man, right? Or of mankind. It's a symbol of many, many things. Again, many people understand now that there's all these different levels of symbolism. But you see, the fact is the majority of people, even if they are going to say that they are atheist or agnostic, are still looking through an Abrahamic controller-based lens. Everything. Crosses and crucifixes, yes. But when we see the balanced cross, an equilateral cross with four the same length arms, simply put, that symbolizes the elements in balance. Now, we were talking about who gave us all this. Well, really, what we've uncovered, which, I guess me and Cindy have always just took it for granted this was the case, but again, so much that we need to get out there. It was these guys, and there's three of them there. Why are they holding up that symbol that we equate so often with the Anunnaki and with Nibiru? And these are symbolic of the Igigi. And it's interesting because they have tails. And if you look at it, they almost have horns, or those are ears or horns. But you kind of almost see the feet again. This is starting to look a lot like that goat man, starting to look a lot like Baphomet, is it not? The Igigi are those that rebelled against the Anunnaki. The Igigi are physical beings that are physical when we're in a Kali Yuga. The Anunnaki are not physical in a Kali Yuga necessarily all the time. Some of them can manifest, just like some of the Greys can manifest in a 3D sense through abilities of a meditative state, really. It's all about slowing down your vibration. Everything, again, as Tesla said, the mysteries of the universe are all about energy. It's all about energy. It's all about frequency and vibration. And there are quite a few beings that can control their own personal frequency and vibration and lower or rise up their frequency and their vibratory rate so that they may appear and disappear before our very eyes. Think about Bigfoot sightings. I saw a Bigfoot, and then I went there and he's gone. I swear he was there. He crossed the road. Look at the footprints. There's footprints, but then they stop. They don't keep going off. This is because in many cases, Bigfoot is an interdimensional being that can be here on 3D and also on 4D.
Mm-hmm. And there wouldn't be so many sightings, and there wouldn't be, hundreds of thousands of sightings and documented reports over something that just simply doesn't exist. I mean, people do not go out of their way to say that they've seen these things, especially when you're dealing with people who are from a small town. Unless it really strikes them as something really huge, they're not going to put their neck out there and say that they saw something that they didn't, because it marks you. So these are very, very real entities that they have written down and claimed that they've seen. I think that's really important to note.
We get this thought line from the Book of Enoch. And again, everything is twisted. That there were these physical beings that came down, a group of 200, remember? And made a pact that they were going to kind of rule the world, but they were going to teach humanity certain things, and then God sends the flood, and the flood washes them away. And, again, they're even named like Armors and Semyaza, etc., etc. In some ways, we can look at that as being the Igigi, because there was a group of Igigi that came here. Where they come from? Well, their stop right before here was Mars. They were on Mars running the mining show there. And that is perhaps where the rebellion occurred. And then some came here. And so they set up shop here. And being that they are physical, but they are also more advanced than most humans, they would appear to be godlike. Now, they basically are still part of the draconian, Anunnakian AI collective, that Borg collective. They are part of that. And yes, they have interbred into humanity. In fact, when you see those elongated skulls again, you're seeing some of the interbreeding and some of the different species. There have been many, many different types of humanoid species on Earth. In Atlantean times, it was common to see ships fly off and come back in.
Mm-hmm. And look how often they really they wipe the screen completely clean, so we cannot remember who we are. And they even use certain technologies to try to disconnect us from remembering who we are and searching within our own energy field to get the story of who we are. So that's one thing they're very good at, is erasing everything and then putting in its place a picture for people to believe that they're from, so they can control that picture.
It's all about controlling the narrative. So again, just to bring it up for you guys, when we see now, Baphomet itself is a egregore, so to speak. And what's an egregore? It's a thought form that will take life when people focus on it. And so in some sense, when we see Baphomet again, we are seeing a representation of the Igigi, but we're also seeing a thought form that's been created for all these other people that may have various degrees of knowledge, may not even understand what they're doing, but they are feeding in energy into it. And so the being Yahweh, Jehovah, is also an egregore. It's a thought form that's been constructed that people worship, send energy into. It becomes a battery. It also becomes another source of feeding for many dark entities upon the planet and not on the planet as well to tap into. And so, the whole world is worshiping the beast, well, 2/3 of it, without even knowing that they are.
I just want to point out to that phrase we hear quite often, need to know. So if you have information and you're only given that information that you need to know, how do you know what the bigger picture is? How do you know what you're feeding into? As above, so below. That's how they do these things. They just give you enough information so that you focus on that point of energy, which is going to give them the bigger picture.
And I was going to do a full-blown another video on the Gnostic point of view, which again uncovers some truths. And again, it gets distorted. That's the one thing that we have to recognize too. Every single system on the planet has distortions in it. Everyone. They do not let anything slide by without their interference. Now, there's some things that were shared out there, such as many people caught on. Yahweh, Jehovah, Allah, could be what's called the Demiurge. Now, from a Gnostic point of view, and again, there's many different branches of Gnosticism, so it's not all unified. From what most people would think of as like the chief Gnostic point of view, the chief of the archons, a malicious, jealous, egotistical, minor supernatural being who, under many names and guises, has deluded many into believing that he is the creator. And he's not the creator. But again, this is what the Anunnaki claim. Oh, we're your creators. We're your creators. We're in your holy books. The Quran, the Bible, the Torah. This is all talking about us. And that's how they announced themselves to us when they wanted to send us a message. And of course, just them coming through made us want to vomit. Honestly, just to put it simply, it was not what we usually get, because the energy that comes through, the beings that come through, for the most part, are just magnificent, beautiful, loving, compassionate beings. Occasionally we will get discarnates. Sometimes it's people that are even, recently buried in the cemetery nearby that come knocking and want to come through and communicate through Cindy. They want to ask what's happened to them, what's going on, and they're confused. And we do help them where we can. As long as they're nice and they play nice, we will help them. But no, this was something so dark, but in an intelligent way, devious. Now, there are other beings that we have encountered that are very, very dark. And in fact, I would call them more like a wraith type being. And these things are not cars. No. These things are what I would call true demons, true demonic entities. A lot of these beings are just basically, they appear like black holes. This would be more one that would be more like that jinn entity that we got on video. And I tell you, Cindy says every time we go to reference that, it was one of their biggest fupas that was never supposed to be seen. And it really, really bothers them. And even bringing that up now creates a much greater likelihood of something going wrong with the video. But these type of beings I have seen many times, not necessarily like that. They're more morphing energy fields of blackness. They're more like, they're like black holes, but they do have this type of quality to them. Very much so. And they're not a problem. Even for as scary as they look, they are not a problem to banish. And there are those that will say you can only do it in the name of Jesus, which wasn't his real name. But because people believe in the name of Jesus, it does work. And really, it's all about your belief system. But we have called on the archangels where necessary. We do call on Vishnu. We call on Isis. We call on Lakshmi. We call on Ganesha. We call on all sorts of benevolent beings, white buffalo calf woman, and I mean it goes on and on. All the ones that have helped us to banish. And before I was even with Cindy, I was part of a group. Actually, it was pretty much all military guys that were into doing basically paranormal research, and so I joined them because I did find it fun, and it was right up my alley. And part of what I would do is go in and clear a place after the investigation, and so it did involve beings like this, but more often than not it was more human entities that were trapped or still hanging around their loved ones is most often the case. But I have seen these beings on multiple occasions, and even literally sucking life force off of people that are sleeping.
Mm-hmm. And the important thing is to understand they exist so that we know how to handle it and deal with it.
So when we go back and talk about these beings that wrote Revelation, it was the Igigi with the Anunnaki. And again, when we understand the Igigi and the Anunnaki from a different perspective, there's been many different beings of benevolent and non-benevolent nature that have appeared to humans at different times. It all depends on where we are in the cycle of the Yuga. I wanted to go back to these guys because there was 3 of them here on the planet, and they are extremely long-lived. And they were here for thousands of years on the planet. Only recently, 2 are no longer here, and there's only 1 left. There's only 1 left of the original ones, and that has weakened their power. And this is also why everything is changing. Everything is changing. Their power is waning. Yet at the same time, as the Igigi power is waning, so to speak, on Earth, we are getting closer to where the Anunnaki will be able to appear completely physical, because we will be on that same density.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, these times are definitely coming upon us. So I like to feel that people have a free belief system, that people can look out into the world and truly find out who they are without the interference. In that sense, then we are living our fullest life. We are walking our path. We are enjoying our journey. And you can't really do that unless you know that everything is in front of you has been controlled by another entity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this is all connected. It was a consortium of the 3 Igigi, along with Anunnakis, and of course they're humans that would be out there being the representatives of the gods on Earth that the humans would see. And so, the humans would not see the Igigi that were on the planet. No, we would only see their representatives. And yes, obviously the Catholic Church has been a major source of power and control for them. About over 1 billion people say they are Catholic. But again, the Bible, the Protestant Bible, comes out of the Catholic Bible because there was over 200 different Gospels, for instance, in circulation. And whether you're looking at a Protestant Bible or a Catholic Bible, you're only given 4. And again, this is part of the control grid because the other ones were removed. Now, we have found a lot of the Gnostic ones, and if you read them and study them, they might feel very confusing coming from a traditional Christian background because, again, it's symbolism. And Yeshua taught in parables because they had to, for one. The system was in place. It's the same system then as it is now. It just changes outward appearance, but it's the same controllers that have been controlling humanity for thousands of years. But that control is breaking down. That's the beauty. We're discovering the control system. As we've talked so many times about the pineal gland, the symbolism of the pine cone. It's all about the Anunnaki controlling your pineal gland, and the Vatican controlling your pineal gland. Everybody sees through that Judeo-Christian lens for the most part. And we were talking too about the Gnostic and how the Gnostics, realized that the entity that we know as Yahweh Jehovah was a dark entity. It's pretty obvious. That's why we re-uploaded an older video that we had done about Bible verses over on Evolutionary that we had put up on EEARTS a couple of years ago to make people see, or to get them so they could see just how dark and evil it is. And it's the same tactics that are still underway. But now the Demiurge, this is where the twist is. So yes, the Yahweh, Jehovah, Allah entity is not an entity of light and love. It is not the creator of this universe. But it's also not really what we would call the Demiurge either, because the Demiurge is more of it's kind of like a program. It's an energetic force of creation, which is neither good or evil. So this is how things get distorted, even amongst those that understand a big part of the bigger picture.
I guess you could look at it like this. So you have a chalkboard and you have chalk. The chalk is the demiurge. What you create on that blackboard is your creation. So it can be directed in that manner.
So when we talk about the archons again, you can use that term for many things, and again, everybody tends to view things in very simple biblical terms, like angels and archangels. These are fallen angels. Well, there's many angels here on earth right now that are here voluntarily, coming down from higher densities than fifth and sixth density in order to help lift up humanity. So this is a part of the distortion. The number one thing that they want you to not know and to not do is to reconnect with the higher aspects of yourself that will enable you to become a powerful force in this density.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you are the earth angel. You are the one that has fallen to this density, not fallen in the sense that you are bad or you are wrong or there's anything at all wrong with you, but fallen in density so that you can take the light within, the light that makes up you, and shine that on other people so that other people might find out who they are.
The other thing, too, that's a distortion, is that they view this world to be evil, and this world's not inherently evil. It's a learning place. And so that's, again, a part of the distortion that we get from the Gnostic line of view, or the one part of the Gnostic line of view that has become kind of synonymous with Gnostic thought in the minds of some. This world is not evil. It's the system that holds the world. 3D is actually an experience that can bring tremendous learning and great lessons.
Oh my gosh, yes. Profound understanding is what we come here to do. And some of us come here to just really enjoy the 3D parts of stuff, and that's okay too. We want to have the experience. It's the harnessing of the energy is where things go wrong.
Absolutely. So we've talked about all this, and again, so many people catch on to things, but then they miss it. They end up going off into a loop that is another controller loop. So here they're thinking that the popes are high priests of Baal, Babylonian sun deity. They surround themselves with sun worshipping symbols, as if the sun is something that's dark. No, the sun is not something that's dark. Quite the opposite. The sun illuminates. And one of the things that honestly does really kind of irk me a little bit is when they bring up the Lucifer thing. And again, Lucifer means literally light bringer. Light, they don't want to bring the light. They want to bring the darkness. you know?
Right. So from their standpoint, looking at Lucifer, it's horrible if anybody sees that you have been brought any form of light, because it's going to kind of ruin their game.
The bottom line is they don't worship anything. They serve themselves. And that's part of the distortion. Where we have it in our genes. It's been programmed into our genes to worship. It's in our genes. Yes, somebody else had said, don't you know Yahweh is written in your DNA? And the reality is, don't you know the Anunnaki are the ones that have tampered with your DNA? They're the ones that rewrote the DNA of your body, which is just your vehicle, so that you will be a better slave. Because that's why Neanderthal is no more. That's why Denisovans are no more. That's why Homo sapiens is the only species that we know of, although we can also say Homo capensis, which, we have an awful lot of those skulls around, those elongated skulls, and we know. And they even acknowledge that it's another... some are openly acknowledging it's another humanoid species on the planet, or has been on the planet, and still is on the planet. Because again, humanity is a hybrid species. But these are just our bodies. These are our vehicles. They've downgraded our vehicle. They did not create our soul. Not at all. And most of us, our home is way above where they could ever go. So much is distorted. There is so much truth. Now, this Popat, and again, there's a lot of different, you got to think in terms of vibration and frequency. The Popat, again, is something that can channel energy and can open up doorways. As many people have recognize that there's certain technologies in play, like when we talk about the Ark of the Covenant and all that, and the symbolism being led by, pillar of fire and then a cloud. Well, obviously, again, these things become so easy to understand to a modern ufologist. These are... Okay, here's something that is to be given. When we look at this, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're worshiping Dagon, an ancient god. No, the power structure was in place in ancient times doing the same thing. This is what we need to get across. So it doesn't necessarily... they don't care who you worship, really, as long as you're serving their purposes. Him and Soros, they look like cousins. Well, when you get down to it, the humans that do see the Igigi in person, and sometimes other Anunnakis that do come visit, very few. This is one, and Soros is actually another, as well as Gil Bates, as well as some others, including Mr. Musk.
They have the strongest DNA to be able to create that information and bring it here to Earth and appear human enough to make other humans follow them and make other humans do what they do and make humans feel safe. So they need human-looking beings to run the show.
So when we see the 7 churches of Revelation, what are we really talking about? Again, every time you get somebody that says to me, you don't understand, the Antichrist is going to come, and then there's going to be, you got the 7-year tribulation, 2 3.5-year periods, Daniel's, book of Daniel, and how that, forecasts them. That was all stuff that I delved into 40 plus years ago. That's just, that's stuff to be uncovered, and then it's time to go from there, because that's not it. It's not it. The symbolism there is much greater. 7 churches. Ooh, 7 lampstands. Look at these lights. What does a flame throw off? It throws off light. And when we see a candle burning, you see that shimmering, that wavering, that emanation, really what we're talking about here, these are chakras. These are the chakras on the spine. They correspond again to the 7 that we would call the 7 base chakras, the 7 major chakras, along in what we call the Taiji pole in Qigong, or if we're talking about Taoist philosophy, again, the crown chakra, the third eye chakra, throat chakra, heart chakra, solar plexus, the sacral, and the root. That's what these are representing. It's so much deeper than that. When we look to the symbolism of the different lodges, the Masonic lodges, well, what do they teach Masons? Ultimately, they're teaching them Kabbalah. They're teaching them the Western mystery tradition, because it has to be hidden openly from the public. They can't have the people knowing. They can teach you as you go in, and they discover, how far can we trust this person? You'll go farther and farther and farther till you get to be a 33rd degree, and then that's really where, you'll actually get into the real door leading into the truer inner mysteries. So you might spend a lifetime and never get into the inner circle or the inner sanctum. And again, truly, Yeshua did speak in parables so that the masses could understand basic spiritual truths. But as far as the nature of this planet and the power structure of this planet, it had to be hidden because it's dangerous. And they do take people out. The only reason we could speak of it so openly in this time is this is the changing of an age. It's, yes, we have Rama with us, and he is our protector, and he's a sweet boy. But still, obviously, the powers that be control very large weapons. But this is the time when all this is unveiled. And so when you look at somebody, getting the 32nd degree or the 33rd degree, 33rd is, there's a reference there. Just like there is with the 7 chakras. And of course, 7 rays, 7 chakras. There's 7, as you can see right here, each chakra is a different color. Each color is a different vibratory frequency. And so, there's many, many good articles on this. And you can see this article is talking about the 7 archangels shield our 7 chakras. In the Hindu tradition, there are devas in each one of our chakras. Our chakras are dimensional doorways. Most people have their crown chakra closed. And this is also a reference to the Pope hat, because, their openness is only going to be to the dark ones, to the Anunnaki, to the Igigi. They close the world's chakras on purpose, and they seal the gates to the pineal gland shut. And again, when we look at the pineal gland, it's a reference to the third eye. So when we look at the mysteries, there's 33 vertebrae. This includes the fused ones in the sacrum. You think about Jacob's ladder and the angels ascending and descending upon the ladder. Well, again, that's the Kundalini flow, and the Kundalini flows up into the crown chakra. And along the way, we have to have those 7 main chakras open. They have to be open. So we have to face everything. Think about it. What is our battle on this planet for right now? It's survival, right? I mean, the inflation, the wars, the plague upon the land, it's all threatening our basic survival. So it's keeping people where? In their root chakra.
Mm-hmm. It's keeping you rooted and grounded, and not in a healthy way. There's healthy ways to do things, and this system is created around us very intricately to make sure that our energy is deflected to a place where it's going to benefit them. But this is our journey, and we need to know how to take back our power. How do we stop being so unfairly rooted into this matrix and open up our chakras? And please understand, this is something that takes time. The one thing that you want to start doing is looking at yourself, looking at your emotions, and start healing yourself. Now, many times when I see chakras, they're having a form of sensory overload. There's too much information going on, and this makes a person really anxious. It can give them a lot of anxiety. It can make it very difficult to focus and make decisions, because those chakras bring in information that are vital to us for our own health and our own healing, for us to find our own path, to really find out, if you are sick, what exactly is wrong? What exactly is it? What is the underlying problem? All that information comes in through the chakras. Now, if there is sensory overload, you're not going to be able to focus and hone in on the most important energy, and that is of you, and how to fix the root problem. Once we are able to do that, then yes, we can expand from there. But understand, this system is set up so deliberately to create problems for the human body, and glitches and blocks and on and on and on. It's just really unfair. And I guess, well, that's my part of everything, is I can see the truth, I can feel the truth, I know how things are supposed to be when it comes to this natural world, natural consequences, natural karmas, natural teachings. All of this is frayed, and we're coming to a time now where the information and the light is starting to shine on everyone. So it's free knowledge to be had, but we also have to go at it in a uniformed way, because some of this information can really disturb people if you're not ready for it.
Absolutely. So yeah, angels ascending and descending upon this ladder. It's a ladder of consciousness, and it's the ascension ladder. It again is the Kundalini energy. It's the life force energy, which is active in us in all the ages but the Kali Yuga, and which is awakening in many. Again, 33. That's why all that symbolism. And we've seen it with the skull and bones too, and others, that Genesis 3:22. I mean, it's all the symbolism's there. So if you really want to know, you could learn everything. I've gone through the Rosicrucian pathway, and it's nothing but Kabbalah and Western mysticism. There's nothing big there that anybody is going to discover earth-shattering that you couldn't find in books now from so many different authors. So many people have covered on these subjects. So, again, you have the 7 cervical, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, and there's 5 fused in the sacrum and 4 in the cossack. So that is what we're talking about when we look at reality. And, it was coming to me recently because I've been studying music theory and trying to get more peace out of throwing myself more into music. Now, this is something for me that had to wait until I was after 42, and there's a Vedic reason for that, and we've shared that with our videos on Vedic astrology. Think about it again. We have different octaves. This is how the universe works. And Yeshua was coming through and saying, yeah, absolutely, if you want to study music theory, you will be basically studying the patterns of the universe. This is a great way to understand how things work, and they work in octaves. So again, you might say, and people have said, and it's a fabulous question. Thank you guys for sharing, the question of the sorts where you say, well, why, if we're going up into 4th density, are we heading up into hell, so to speak? Because 4th density, the lower part of 4th density, is where those nightmarish, hellish realms exist. And yes, hell is different for every single person, so to speak. Just to share with you guys, my nightmares are being back in the corporate world. Those are my nightmares. That's my worst dreams. I'm back in the corporate world. That's how much my aversion was. Even though in modern sense it wasn't so bad for me, I had an easier time financially when I was in the corporate world, but that's the trap. And so, I had to let go of everything and literally just put clothes and a few books and a guitar in a car that was a junker that only lasted for 6 months. And I left my entire world. But I knew it was the only pathway that was going to lead to me discovering myself. So when people say, too, about manifestation, can you talk more about how we can manifest a positive reality for ourselves? The first thing is you got to know yourself. And that's what we were getting at with the video that we did on self-realization. There's nothing more important than understanding who you are. And we don't mean that, again, you're Joe Smith, you're a plumber, and you live in Utah. That's not who you are. That's not who you are. Only you can discover who you are.
Mm-hmm. Self-realization is about removing all the layers of conditioning and finding out who you are. What are your favorite colors? What is your favorite music? Are you listening and doing all this stuff just because it's been placed in front of you or because you truly chose it? And this is where we like to help people figure out who they are. What do they like? And this opens up a whole new world of enjoying this 3D experience, having a 3D experience that is very, very, very beneficial to the soul, and not a 3D experience that's asphyxiating like they have done. It's really difficult. We like to watch some TV here and there and a video here and there, and sometimes I see these commercials about these different medicines that they put out there for people, and I can't speak too much on it, but I can tell you, I know these things are to really cover up our essence, cover up who they are. So this is why we do like to do essence readings. We do like to do astrology, things to help people, give them tools to find a foothold, to find an anchor, give them some kind of direction as to who they are.
So again, think of it like a ladder. And think of it, if you want to, you could think of it as a ladder and then kind of like a platform to another ladder. So just like with musical notes, as we're climbing the notes, and you go from an A to a B to a C, D, E, F, G, it repeats again, and you go back to A. And then, of course, we have sharps and flats, which in essence are the same thing from a different perspective. So this is the same way with densities. So when we're looking at third density, then you climb up to that top ladder, you're at the highest echelon of third density, you step into the lowest echelon of fourth density.
Mm-hmm. And if you're not looking at the screen, please look at the screen, because this is information that really can be eye-opening to help you understand. Look at the music notes. Look where the third is as opposed to the fourth. Visualization is so important for so many of us. We have to not just really see it, but we have to feel it.
Yes, Yeshua came through with this, and Yeshua was talking to me about this, and I don't have a perfect understanding on this yet. There was other stuff coming through, and there's a whole bunch more that will be coming through that as I go deeper into the meditation focusing on this, it will be revealed to me, and then I'll share it with you guys. But we could think of this as a Jacob's ladder of sorts on a universal scale, on a galactic scale, on a bigger scale.
Yeah, and you might ask, well, why don't these entities just tell us all this stuff? Why don't you just put it out there? Because it's not the same to discover it because someone else told you. When you discover it on your own and you feel it in such a way that it reflects inside of you, then you own it. Then it's yours. Then it's locked in your soul, and you get to keep that. Nobody can take that from you.
Yes, and my beloved brother over in the UK, David, here's something where we're similar but different, because I remember saying to him about learning music theory, and he's like, nobody likes music theory. It's like, actually, I do. I love it. I mean, but there again, this is me. This is me as a 5-year-old grabbing a Bible and a Catholic missal and begging the neighbor's kid, can you read this to me? I gotta know what's in there. because, again, this is just me, and it's because of where my Rahu and Jupiter is. I have to know everything, and that's just part of my makeup. Again, Vedic astrology can tell you so much about yourself that you just won't really uncover unless you are spending, as we had said, I mentioned thousands of hours of meditation, and then I was re-looking at it and then thinking, yeah, thousands of hours of meditation. Yeah, it is.
Finally found it.
It is thousands of hours, literally. And so many people will think thousands of hours of meditation, but when you break it down, how many people have spent thousands of hours playing video games? A ton. I mean, do you play video games for an hour a day, 2 hours a day? Well, just think about it. If you played video games for 2 hours a day, that's 14 hours in a week. So in 1 year's time, you've played over 600 hours of video games in 1 year's time. Yeah, we have spent thousands of hours in meditation. And meditation can be many things. I'm meditating now when I'm putzing on the guitar. When I get to a certain point in time, I am consciously opening up the crown chakra as wide as it'll go, and I'm letting go of the left side of the brain, and that's when I seem to do the best. And I got a long way to go, a ton to go. When we look at like what makes up of a chord, for instance, it's made up of typically triad. It's 3 notes. It's 3 notes that the root, the third, and the fifth. And this does again correlate in many ways to how the universe works. And we could look at it from so many different aspects, but musical scale is a great way to look at things. And intervals, it's all about interval. It's all about how things flow together. Here you could see a diatonic scale and a chromatic circle. And yeah, some of this stuff is going to be harder than others for certain people. It all depends, again, on who we are. And I'm sure you guys have heard of Archetypes, 12 Archetypes by Carl Jung. For some reason, when it came to time to do psychology in school, I couldn't ever stand doing things from a Freudian perspective, but Carl Jung really vibed with me. And the whole concept of archetypes. We are walking through a window, so to speak, when we come into this reality, and we come through with, as Cindy would say, a dominant guide, multiple dominant guides. But again, we could also view it as dominant archetypal forces.
Right, these energies that just sort of take over our being, take over our essence, and make us who we are. And that is nice to know who that is so that you can understand it further. Is self-realization, it's probably one of the best therapies, besides having a horse, it's one of the best therapies you can put yourself into.
And we are going long on this, but I'm going to really encourage people to go and, maybe we'll do something that I don't usually do, and that's timestamp this. So I think this one should be timestamped, so we could go to different areas. So you might relate more to one or the other. Now, I've always thought of myself as a natural caregiver. It's part of my makeup. I want to help others. Sometimes I could get a little bit of a martyr syndrome going, and my compassion sometimes can be used against me, and it has been. And Cindy's been, somebody that's witnessed that. You might see yourself as the class clown, the jester. You always want to try to get people to lighten up. And so you could see these different archetypes: the sage, the magician, the ruler, the lover, the rebel, the explorer, the innocent, the orphan, the hero, the caregiver, and the creator. These are some. There's many other personifications we can do. Now, some of these will get along better with others. And it's just like musical notes. There are certain musical notes that you put them together and they sound horrible. Other musical notes, you put them together and they're beautiful and they just resonate together. if you've ever ever listened to, I should say, seventh chords. I love the sound of like a dominant seventh chord. It's just so beautiful to my ears, but it might not be to yours, because again, we're all unique. We're all coming through a different perspective. There's something called the caged system in guitar that helps with learning how things kind of flow and go together. Again, it's all ways for us to kind of put together our own symphony, so to speak, in this world. Ways for us to organize things, to find people that mesh with us. Because again, Cindy and I might have a dozen friends, but there might be 2 or 3 of that dozen that will agree with almost all the time. And then there'll be other ones that will still be good friends, but you might find that you're disagreeing more than agreeing with. Again, it depends on what lens we are seeing the world through. It depends on what timestamp we came into the world at. Because again, the planets, the stars, they have a major influence on us. They really do form us. So again, when you look at these different types of archetypes, there are going to be some that are going to clash. And then there are going to be some that are just going to go together. And this is a representation of that, as you could see, making an equilateral cross and taking the 12 and breaking it down into 4 groups of 3 that kind of are going to understand each other better. And this is part of understanding relationships. And Cindy has been going into and doing more and more with compatibility in Vedic astrology.
Mm-hmm. Which is very, very useful because, astrology, it's great for self-realization. But when I went into compatibility, now it's become very useful. So understanding, the moon, I've always known the moon was important, but boy, oh boy, when it comes to relationships, that's key. How are your moon's information going to line up? But then I also learned that sometimes people can get along through different planetary forces. Say if you have a strong Venus type of energy together, then you would want to, when you go to get along, you'd want to go out and have dinner. If you're trying to work through something, work it over through dinner, or work it through over something nice, something pleasant, some kind of luxury, and then you're really going to resonate together and be able to get through that difficult time you might be having. So it's been a lot of fun learning about compatibility, and oh gosh, I just can't say how useful it is. It's just awesome.
And one thing that comes to mind, say you have a business partner or somebody you're thinking about going into business with, for instance, would a partnership with them work? Just like when we get into marriage or, a lifelong relationship with a partner, I think it's a great thing to understand where you're coming from the astrological point of view. And with Cindy and I, we just meshed like, puzzle pieces that were perfectly carved. Not always the case, as both of us have had relationships that didn't work. And again, if you're going to go into some major endeavor, it would be something that would be a good idea. But of course, you need to know the time, place, and when we say time too, the exact time of birth, as well as the place and the date. And so when we look at this and the circle of fifths, again, certain notes and certain chords and certain people just go together, and then others just won't. But that's again because of the internal makeup. So again, there's so much to be learned from music theory. And of course, everything is a fractal. Everything we see, it's a fractal universe. And there is the pattern of a whole in each individual unit. And of course, the planets themselves can be viewed as archetypal forces. Of course, depending, if your Mars is with Rahu in your first house, you're going to be very, very different than if, your Mars is, with Ketu. Mm-hmm. It night and day.
Mm-hmm. The energy is just totally, they can switch each other around. So you gotta, when you understand what part of your life are these energies important to, is it past life? Is it this life? What do you want to know? Then you can go in there and kind of surgically pick things apart and find a little deeper understanding. But that's after you know the planets and their personalities.
The other thing to recognize, too, is even though we're born with all these tendencies, we are constantly rewriting our DNA. Constantly. We can reprogram ourselves at any point in time. It's understanding our natural strong points, our natural weaknesses, our natural tendencies, understanding kind of like the imprint that we are born with that can give us an idea where we should put our energy into. So as we can relate these different archetypes with the zodiac. And again, we could interrelate that with the planetary forces. And do you want to know what's taught at the core of almost every mystery school, all these mystery traditions? What's one of the first things that they teach? What's one of the most important things they teach is astrology. Astrology is the root of everything as far as the teachings in the mystery schools. It's all about understanding these things. And so, if you were brought up with the mindset that, oh my God, you got tarot cards, you're evil. Yeah, you're evil in the eyes of the control system that wants you to be a good little slave, because they don't want you to understand these things. They don't want you to understand yourself. These pictures, especially if they're well done artfully, can trigger things in our thought process that can illuminate us. They could get us out of the programming. They don't want you getting out of the programming. They don't want you triggering aspects of your right brain that are going to bypass all that left brain learning and all the different information that's been driven and hammered into your mind. This is what these things can do. They can all of a sudden bring us realizations, illuminations that seem to pop up out of nowhere.
What I see when we talk about this is the schoolyard bully who has control over all the other people on the playground. Suddenly people start to realize their power and they start leaving the playground one by one, and the bully's just going to be sitting there alone pretty soon.
Yeah, and to him, it's no fun if there's nobody to bully.
That's right.
This is exactly what we need to do. We need to leave the system behind. So when you look at your Vedic chart, again, the houses all have their perspective flavors, so to speak, and they're all about different aspects of our reality. And it does make a difference where everything is lined up. Again, what we expose ourselves to, many people have awakened to solfeggio tunings and the benefit of exposing ourselves to certain frequencies. Wasn't it so hilarious to see, I should probably say hilariously sad, to see how modern tuning has changed. And many people caught onto 432 and 440 hertz, and the fact that the modern music scale and everything has been shifted as well, purposely, because they want to keep us locked down. They don't want us expanding outwards. So each one of these different frequencies can correspond to a different chakra, and then of course the different colors correspond to a different chakra. So what should you listen to? Well, use the intuition, because it's going to change day to day depending on what's going on in your life. And this is a guide to healing colors. And yeah, when we do energy healing, there are many, many times that I'm focusing on certain colors. If somebody, for instance, just received a bad burn, I would use blue first, to calm and to cool. If somebody has a headache, again, I'm using blue, calming and cooling. And again, it depends on what the circumstance is. Like with red is very, very invigorating. If somebody, for instance, if you fear that there's cancer present, you wouldn't run red or orange because they're too invigorating and they might end up triggering more growth of those negative type of cells. So green is always safe as a general healing color. If we ever want to root and ground ourselves, green is very, very healing, beneficial. If you want to raise the vibrations, maybe you feel scattered, fearful, nervous, almost feel like you're under psychic attack, magenta or violet can definitely work to raise the frequency up, or a golden light can work as well.
And things you would use red and orange for is to bring about more energy, bring about that ability to heal yourself. Say if you got knocked down with a really bad cold, you might want to envision that root chakra being redder and stronger, and that helps the body heal faster.
And so, this video is giving you guys a little bit more of a comprehensive viewpoint on some things that we've touched on in different videos, but trying to give you a little bit more of a holistic viewpoint here. So again, the chakras, and we could relate these to tuning forks too. Yeah. And, Cindy has tuning forks all around the house. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many tuning forks she has. How many do you have?
I probably have 50.
Yeah, I would say, good 50. Yeah.
And I use them intuitively too. So whenever I happen to reach down and pick one up, it just usually happens to be the one that person needed for the organ, because they are set to tune certain organs and certain body parts back to their original form.
Yeah, and as she's saying that, again, frequencies, colors, organs, all these things work together. It's as above, so below. Recognizing that this is all about the viewer. What do we learn in quantum physics? Well, we learn that the very act of observation changes the outcome. Observation changes the outcome. We talked about the other day, or was it yesterday, we were saying, I am not the body. I am not even the mind. We are the observer. And that's something to meditate on. And to really absorb inwards. Because ultimately, we're consciousness. We are consciousness itself. You cannot, as it's Max Planck. Max Planck said, and again, one of the founding fathers of quantum physics, you cannot get behind consciousness. There's nothing that is a root. There's no other source than consciousness. Consciousness is the ultimate source.
Indeed.
So again, we can view these things in so many different ways. And we could view them, like when we look at so many, what we might call mystical talismans with these different symbols on them, different things, like a different tetragram or a hexagram, you name it. These are all symbolic of really the way the universe works, through mathematics, through sound, through frequency, through vibration, through energy, through consciousness. It's this infinite spiral of creation that is really something that is so magical and beautiful. And it's reflected again as above, so below. When we look out into the universe, we see structures that remind us of things that we see all around us in nature, as well as at a microscopic level. Truly, it is a beautiful thing. When we look at the energy field of a human, it's a torus, just like the Earth's energy field, just like the galaxies, just like the universe. It goes on and on and on, and it's just magnificent. And it's a wonder. And it's a beautiful thing. The universe is a fractal. Whatever energy signature we carry will be repeated infinitely again and again until we change that vibration. So some have said, why don't you just focus on the positive? Well, again, because we're trying to bring awakening to those that are sleepwalking zombies, basically. To put it bluntly, yes, and awaken the masses. Now, if we just focused on the positive, the only ones we would reach would be those that are already awakened. And so it is other beings' journey to take those that are completely awakened to new heights. And, we do participate as we can as well in doing that for those that want to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And it is our choice too at some point in time when we get to that point where we say, okay, we're done with the news, we're done with all the, anything negative. We're just going to focus on people that at that point in time are awakened, and we'll just go, to all new higher levels. Then it'll be our decision at that time. But we're at this critical juncture right now where you could see what's going on in the world. So the imperative thing is waking up enough of the masses so that we could shift the paradigm, because we don't have enough people awakened yet to shift the paradigm.
And we meet them where they're at. There's so many good, beautiful, bright souls that are here to help others, but they're still in the matrix, and they're still watching news, and they're still getting very, very angry. So we go there basically to show people that there is another way. Life does not have to be this way. You do not have to be angry at all of this things that are happening. You can shift your perspective, but you can't do that unless you go to that point. And yes, it is going to take more of us as a collective to shift the whole paradigm.
And so when we look to family charts and lineage trees, truly there are no dead ends. There's not dead ends, so to speak. And again, it's as above, so below. So when we look at this and you see different descendants and ancestors, it's the same thing kind of spiritually. And there are new beings coming into our spiritual family tree all the time and intermingling in and changing the current us. So, you might have had a certain ancestry in the past on a spiritual sense, a certain higher self, that for a new incarnation will all of a sudden be joined by a totally different higher self entity and take part in this particular incarnation, if it is a very important one, or it's going to lead to some sort of positive change.
And astrology is really good for that too. There's divisional charts that talk all about who you were in a last life, and that's something that I've been learning about, dabbling in lately, and coming to these new understandings. But when I do a chart, it's not going to be the same as what you might think. I've taught myself through various different ways, because the way I learn is really different. So I take my intuition and I take my abilities and I combine that with the knowledge of astrology, and then we go to town.
Absolutely. And each one of us, in many ways, is a very, very complex being that is made up of so many different entities in many ways. And of course, we all have our different guides that help us on these journeys. And some aspects of ourselves, if you've ever had like an internal conflict, why can't I find a resolution on this? I keep going between this and this and that. Well, that's because you're not truly a singular you. I mean, you are a singular you, but you're made up of many different beings working together to change a paradigm. For those that are starseed light workers, for instance, that are here, again, there are beings that might have joined you just for this particular incarnation to help bring about certain skill sets, certain abilities, wisdom that perhaps you hadn't gained yet throughout your multiple incarnations. We are very, very complex beings, and it goes far beyond anything that we are openly taught out there. And even in the mystery traditions, there's always different, key holders, people that are blocking certain doors because they can't have you understand that bigger picture of just what a magnificent being you are, and just how, infinite the possibilities are for each and every one of us.
Right. And when you discover you don't have to stay on that playground with that bully anymore, then the playground starts getting empty. Everyone finds a new playmate. And keep in mind, you are a kaleidoscope in unto yourself. Every little different I can't speak all of a sudden. You say it.
Yeah, every single, just think about it again. What does a kaleidoscope do? It reflects and reflects light. And so, just looking at this gives you that view. Every single little prism of light, every little different distortion that's coming through a new lens, it's just magnificent. So no two people are ever supposed to be identical. And, any system that comes around saying you must conform to it, one size fits all, is a distortion of the true creator and of source.
Mm-hmm. Right. Everyone is just a little bit different, and we need to keep it that way. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.